Ever get this feeling like history's playing on repeat? It's kind of the vibe I'm getting from these Pastor Matthew Maher sermons you sent over, both called Discerning the Devil's Playbook.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, killer title.
It definitely grabs your attention.
Right.
And Maher, he doesn't waste any time getting to the point.
Okay.
He sees this pattern of, like, societal manipulation that he thinks led to Nazi Germany, and now he's saying it's happening here.
See, that's what I mean about history repeating.
Right.
So how does he break this whole playbook thing down?
So he lays out these 4 major plays.
Okay.
And the first one takes us all the way back to the Garden of Eden. Did God really say? Maher argues that this questioning of fundamental truths, that's the first crack in the foundation of a healthy society, right?
Interesting. So how does he connect that to, Nazi Germany?
Well, he points to Hitler.
Okay.
And Hitler's systematic attempt to diminish Christianity in German society. He even uses the term de-Christianize. And Maher draws a parallel to this modern concept of separation of church and state.
Right.
Which, and this is where it gets interesting, that whole phrase, not actually a direct quote from the U.S. Constitution.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
I always thought that was straight from the Founding Fathers.
It's a really common misconception, actually. The First Amendment, it prohibits the government from establishing a national religion, but it doesn't actually call for a complete separation of church and state.
Okay, so there's definitely some nuance there.
Yeah.
But how does Maher tie this back to his whole point about societal decay?
He uses the example of Pastor Jack Hibbs.
Okay.
Remember, he delivered that congressional prayer earlier this year.
Right.
And it sparked all that controversy for its overtly Christian language.
Yeah.
People were accusing Hibbs of, like, Christian nationalism.
Right.
Saying that he's blurring the lines between faith and politics. Maher suggesting that this kind of reaction, this fear of even discussing faith in the public sphere, that's a dangerous sign.
So he's saying that, like, pushing faith out of the public square creates a void.
Yeah.
That something else will rush in to fill, and it might not be pretty.
Exactly.
Okay, that's definitely something to think about. But, if silencing opposing voices is part of the playbook, isn't controlling the information itself a major play too?
Absolutely, yeah.
Right.
Maher's second play is all about controlling the narrative.
Go.
He argues that whoever controls the information, they control the masses, right?
Right.
He draws a direct line from the Tower of Babel to Nazi propaganda.
Wow.
And he really emphasizes that even the most outlandish claims, if they're repeated often enough, they can take root in the public consciousness.
It's like that old saying, repeat a lie often enough and it becomes the truth.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And to really drive this point home, Maher throws out this really unsettling statistic.
Okay.
He claims that 6 corporations control 90% of U.S. media.
Wow.
Which makes you wonder, right?
It does.
Whose story are we really being told here?
That's kind of scary when you think about it.
Yeah.
We could be getting spoon-fed information without even realizing it. So if play number 1 is like contradict the truth and play number 2 is control the narrative,
right?
Where does Maher go from there?
Think about it this way. If you can make people distrust their usual sources of information,
right,
then you can feed them whatever narrative you want.
And I'm guessing that leads right into play number 3.
You got it. Maher calls this one bring conflict to groups.
Okay.
And he argues that a divided nation, it's easy to manipulate.
Right.
He points to Hitler's rise to power.
Okay.
Specifically, the Reichstag fire of 1933.
Right.
Now, the Reichstag, that was the German parliament building. And most historians believe that the Nazis actually started the fire themselves.
Wait. They set their own government building on fire?
It sounds crazy, right?
How would they do that?
Because they could use the crisis to their advantage.
Oh, I see.
Hitler blamed the fire on his political opponents.
Okay.
Communists and socialists.
Right.
And he used the fear, all the chaos, to consolidate his power.
Wow.
Eventually, he dismantled German democracy altogether.
So it's like a distraction technique.
Yeah.
Create a problem, point the finger at your enemies, and then swoop in with the solution.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's where Maher draws these really unsettling parallels
Oh.
to current events.
Okay.
He sees a similar kind of scapegoating happening today with like how some groups were treated during the COVID-19 pandemic.
Yeah.
You know, those who questioned the official narrative or resisted certain measures.
Right.
They were often ostracized, labeled as dangerous.
Right.
Even unpatriotic.
Yeah, it's like history rhyming, even if it doesn't repeat exactly.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
But where does the church fit into all of this?
Well, that brings us to Maher's final
Okay.
and perhaps most disturbing play. Convert the youth. He argues that this is where the real long game lies.
Okay.
You know, he points to the chilling effectiveness of Nazi youth programs,
Right.
which were literally designed to indoctrinate an entire generation.
Yeah, it's like those images you see of children in Nazi uniforms saluting Hitler.
Yeah.
It's a chilling reminder of how easily young minds can be influenced.
Right.
Especially when they're bombarded with a single ideology.
Precisely.
Oh.
And this resonates with a lot of anxieties around education today. Like what should be taught in schools?
Right.
How do we present information objectively? How do we encourage critical thinking?
Right.
These are questions parents and educators are grappling with constantly.
It's like walking a tightrope.
Yeah.
Right?
It is.
But Maher, he doesn't shy away from controversy.
No, he doesn't.
He makes this really jarring comparison between the chemical used in Nazi gas chambers and the abortion pill.
Yeah, and it's a shocking juxtaposition.
It is.
And it's important to be clear here.
Yeah.
There's no scientific basis for comparing those two substances in terms of their effects.
Okay.
However, Maher's point is to highlight what he sees as a dangerous double standard.
Okay.
This willingness to overlook or even condone certain actions because they align with a particular ideology.
So we've got truth being contradicted, information being controlled, conflict being stirred up, and young minds being targeted.
Yeah.
It's a pretty bleak picture, to be honest.
It's definitely a lot to process.
Yeah.
But Maher, he doesn't leave us completely without hope.
Okay, good.
He suggests that there are 3 types of churches operating in this environment, each with a different approach to these challenges.
Okay, I'm listening. What are the 3 types?
Okay, so the first type Maher calls the conventional church.
Okay.
And he describes them as, sort of set in their ways, more focused on tradition and keeping things as they are than really engaging with the messy realities of the world.
Like burying their heads in the sand.
In a way, yeah.
Right.
Then you have the cultural church. Okay. This type is very much in tune with the prevailing culture.
Okay.
Maybe even a little too much so.
Right.
They're willing to compromise on certain beliefs or values just to fit in and avoid conflict.
So they're going with the flow, even if that flow is headed towards a cliff.
Yeah, that's one way to put it.
Okay.
And finally, you have the convictional church.
Oh.
And this is the type of church that Maher believes is most needed in these times.
Okay.
A church that is deeply rooted in its faith.
Okay.
Unafraid to speak truth to power.
Right.
And committed to being a beacon of light in what he sees as a darkening world.
So it's about having the courage of your convictions.
Yes.
Standing firm on your beliefs, even when it's unpopular, even when it's difficult.
Exactly.
Right.
It's about being that city on a hill,
right.
A force for truth and righteousness in a world that often seems to have lost its way.
Wow. Okay, there's a lot to unpack.
It is.
Maher's sermons, they really paint a stark picture.
They do.
But you know what strikes me?
What's that?
He doesn't present these plays as inevitable.
Right.
It's like he's giving us a warning, but also a challenge.
I think that's a great observation.
Right.
He's not just saying, give up, all hope is lost. He's saying, wake up, pay attention, and engage with the world around you.
Right, because we all have a role to play, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The choices we make every day, the information we consume, the conversations we have, it all matters.
It does.
We can choose to be passive, to just let the current carry us wherever it may go.
Right.
Or we can choose to be active, to question, to think critically, and to stand up for what we believe in.
So in a way, this whole devil's playbook, it's like a wake-up call.
Yeah, I like that.
A reminder that we can't just sit on the sidelines. We have to be engaged, informed,
Right.
and ready to fight for what's right.
That's a powerful way to put it.
Right.
And ultimately, I think that's Maher's message.
So
Don't be afraid to engage with the world.
Yeah.
Even when it's messy and complex.
Right.
Don't be afraid to ask tough questions, to challenge the status quo,
Right.
and to stand up for your beliefs.
Well said. This deep dive has definitely given me a lot to think about.
Good.
And you know what? I have a feeling it's just the beginning of the conversation.
Yeah, me too.
What about you? What resonated most with you from Maher's sermons? What will you take away from this exploration of the Devil's Playbook?
Yeah.
We'd love to hear your thoughts, so keep the conversation going in the comments. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been my pleasure.